Welcome to Bad Gear, the show about the world's most hated audio tools. Today we're going to talk about the Arturia Minibrute. After the release of the mostly musicless Drum Brute episode, I got quite some heat in the comments for allowing myself to put any Arturia gear on the show. Don't get me wrong, I love Arturia for the innovative approach and great UIs, and the BeatStep Pro is without a doubt one of the best step sequences of all time. What is more, their plugins are great, and after all I've heard, it seems like I have to test the Microfreak outside of the Bad Gear context. Maybe Red Gear? It is no secret that the signature Arturia analog sound never really tickled my fancy. I would say that's okay. Tastes differ and not everyone likes the sound of, for example, bagpipes or the banjo. The Minibrute was Arturia's first foray into the analog synth world, and I remember it being something that people got really excited about. New and feature-laden instruments with lots of knobs and buttons always turn some heads, but when a French molecular and cellular biologist with a strong expertise in embryology and a fable for super old-school synth music is one of the masterminds behind it, we can expect some serious outside-the-box thinking. At the first glance, the Arturia Minibrute is on an unabating box-ticking spree. One single massive oscillator featuring super, mega, ultra, hypersaw, PWM and the metalizer, Arturia's method of sending triangle waves to hell and back, a versatile and easy to use LFO section, vibrato and an arpeggiator that truly deserves its name. One would not expect a small synth like the Minibrute to have aftertouch, and the brute factor is a nice take on the Minimoog feedback loop trick for even more brutish and chaotic sounds. I have always been a big fan of faders for controlling envelopes, and even though it doesn't have the patch bay of its successor, the CV and gate ins and outs are a nice touch for friends of modular synthesizers. There's an audio in and the keyboard is nothing to complain about. The controls of the synth are nicely laid out, and if I had to teach the workings of subtractive synthesis, the Minibrute would be the ideal starting point. Although there have been some issues with the first production run, the build quality of my unit is more than decent. I like the metal enclosure, and the wobbliness of the controls is acceptable. For better or worse, Arturia opted for the Steiner-Parker filter design of the obscure synthcon of the 70s. And for those of you who can't keep their hands off the soldering iron, there's plenty of first-hand information about the innards of the synth on the Hacker Brute webpage. You can find used Minibrutes for prices around 200 units of US, UK, EU legal tender, and there have been some very cheap ones in the local classifieds here in Austria recently. Given this overwhelming feature set, it indeed comes as a surprise that there is quite some animosity towards this sexy French monosynth on the internet. You have already heard the Minibrute in our little intro tune. It took me a little longer than usual to dial in some usable sounds, and you can clearly tell that it's not just another Moog clone. Let's listen to the raw and maybe a little too direct output of the synth in this minimalist jam using the BeatStep Pro in combination with the internal arpeggiator and aftertouch routed to the filter. That was dry as a bone, but most synth would need some help in such an exposed situation. Let's give it a little FX pedal push and a more pleasing rhythmic backdrop. I didn't expect that much versatility from the Minibrute. We all know that the brute factor sounds evil AF, but the creamy leads and synth lines really shine when using some delay, reverb and modulation FX. CV interfacing with the BeatStep Pro works like a charm and opens a whole universe of modulation possibilities even without using modular synth components. I still wanna know how much pure dirt we can get out of that little synth. Let's show no mercy with this 0 years German tech IDM balls to the wall dance floor sweeper. verdict. The Arturia Minibrute is a schizophrenic instrument. On the one hand, it is as self-explanatory as a synth can get. One knob per function, the sliders offer a visual representation of the envelopes and oscillator mix, and it has all the basic functions of a subtractive synth and some more. If you are a synthesizer newbie, there is probably no better synth for learning the basic principles of creating a sound from scratch. It is like a tutorial in synth form. On the other hand, it can be hard to make patches that don't have the timbre the Minibrute and Arturia synth in general are often criticized for. Overly bright, aggressive and a bit thin. It is possible to make it sound mellow and well balanced, but getting there may take some time and dedication, which can be quite a turn-off for beginners. The classic Mini is probably the ideal synth for rock guitar players turned synth enthusiasts. You can get it used for the price of a nice overdrive pedal, it's easy to use and straightforward, the overtone spectrum you can get out of it might remind you of a distorted electric guitar, and chances are that you have a bunch of FX pedals the Minibrute wants to be friends with. Thanks for watching and see you next time! Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Feel free to like and subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment what other kind of gear you would like to see and hear on the show.